What family secret has been kept away from only you, and how did you find out about it? Dad didn't have a heart attack, he committed suicide. I learned this from one of his oldest friends. My mom looked like a deer in the headlights when I asked her about it. Similar thing with my grandfather. He was a rifle instructor in the Marine Corps and then got a job with the state troopers as an instructor when he got out. According to my mom and grandmother, he was very safety conscious. So according to my mom, he was cleaning his gun one day and accidentally shot himself in the head. Despite having safety drilled into him his entire life, he somehow put his head in the way of the muzzle of a loaded gun and accidentally pulled the trigger. The only reason I know the truth is because my great uncle, his brother, talked to me when I was going through depression. He said he saw a lot of similarities between me and my grandfather and he didn't want me to end up the same way. My cousin is adopted, but for years we were told not to mention it because she didn't know. I was talking about it with my dad one day because I couldn't believe she didn't know. During the conversation, he let it slip that my older sister was conceived using donor sperm. After a moment, he added that I was also conceived using donor sperm. Our two younger siblings, however, were not and were completely unexpected. It turns out that my older sister knew, but that my mom made both my sister and dad promise not to tell me. I'm not entirely sure why I wasn't supposed to know, but they managed to keep it a secret until I was 22. I'm 23 now. Grandpa asking questions in retirement home randomly about Apple. A few months back dove into his old financial paperwork. He has 209 original very valuable Apple shares. Nothing too crazy, but I found out my mom cheated on my dad before marriage and a second time when I was 3 years old. Took her about 15 years to confess to my dad. Dad is now filing for divorce. I can relate. My parents just got divorced a couple years ago because my mom cheated. Found out she had cheated before when I was around 6. Funny thing is I remember seeing her with the first guy holding hands. Thought it was weird when I was little, but never hit me why until my dad drunkenly ranted about it recently. I remember one afternoon, I went to have a chat with my mom. I asked if she had any funny stories to tell me. She says, no. Not really. Oh, there is one thing. You were supposed to be a twin, but your sister didn't make it. She told me to ask my sister, grandma, or brother if I didn't believe her. I did and they all confirmed. I was 17 at the time and had no clue. Almost all of my family members, extended to, are smokers. I've been told that smoking is extremely bad / been told not to smoke or else. Just look at our family, no one is doing it. It's unhealthy. Of course I tried anyway, didn't like it though. Then, when I was like 14, I've been hanging out with my older cousin. Suddenly she tells me tell no one, and lit a cig. Now the weird part is that all of these smokers didn't know that they are all smokers. They've been hiding it from each other too. Edit, formatting. My sister was raped as a teenager and my dad almost killed the guy. Fortunately my dad didn't and never had charges against him for it. I don't know what happened to the guy. She's older than me by 6 years so obviously my family couldn't explain what happened to little me. I overheard what happened late at night when everyone thought I was asleep. I had to look up what rape is in the dictionary. My very religious mom was 3 months pregnant when she got married. She never lied about it, I just didn't do the math right until I was like 20. She mentioned it was almost her 22nd anniversary and I said you mean your 23rd and she just said no. My 22nd. Turns out the talk my grandmother had with her went something like no one will want to marry you if you aren't a virgin, and she figured she was engaged, so that was a moot point. Her mom was pissed and wouldn't talk to her for a while. Her dad, who is a deacon, replied with well you aren't the first, and you certainly won't be the last, so it is what it is. Edit because people don't understand. My mom was pregnant with my brother, not by my brother. My uncle is a rapist. That is what he went to prison for. Read it in his diary. When I was 6, an uncle, dad's brother, who lived on the opposite side of the country, came to live with us for few months. As a kid I didn't think anything of it past school. A relative is staying here, then one day he just up and left and we didn't hear from him again. Mom told me like 13 years later that he was on the run from the cops. At the time she didn't know for what, but after he left she found out he was accused of murder. So, yeah. My father's siblings and their families don't talk to us anymore since my grandmother's, their mom, passing in 2009. I was told that they were just too busy working and doing their own thing to hang out like we all used to. But on the off chance I would see them, I would always be the first and only one to say hi and try and catch up. About the time I was 18 in 2014, I'm currently 22, I was told that the reason they didn't talk to us anymore is that they turned their backs on my grandmother when she was dying and about to lose her house. So my father stepped up and tried to convince his siblings to help save the house and help with the medical bills. They turned their backs on her and my father, so my father ended up buying the house and restored it. When my grandmother passed, my father's siblings tried to claim their piece of mom's money, even though they didn't do anything for her when she was dying. They refused to associate with my father, mother, sister and me. To this day I did one. Holy shit, I never expected to see so many similar stories like mine. If I have any advice for anyone reading this who is going through something similar, or think they may go through something similar, it's to get everything in writing. Bank statements, medical bills, receipts, even a written statement of the family member you are helping stating they are okay with the terms of the situation you find yourself in. My mum and dad split up when I was about 4. From 4 until about 12, I had conversations with him over the phone, wanted to go visit, but wasn't allowed because I was too young. But my brother had been to visit when he was my age. Turns out that dad was found getting sexually inappropriate with me, which is why I was never allowed to visit. I don't remember it, but it explains a lot of personal quirks. And all of my family know, but no one would talk about it until I was 12, and I directly asked my mum questions she couldn't avoid. The thing that pisses me off about it most is that they let me spend more time exposed to him without making sure I knew he was dangerous. My grandpa fathered 2 children out of affairs. The youngest one is my age. My mom told me when she was drinking one night. My grandma still doesn't know about the youngest. Grandpa was an alcoholic and that's why he slept all the time and was late picking me up from school when we lived with my grandparents. My mom only told me after I complained about a decade later. Explained some other weird shit he did too. My mother wanted to have an abortion when she got pregnant with me, but my father persuaded her, only to start cheating on her a year after I was born. My mother told me about this while we were fighting one time during my teenage years. They got divorced when I was about 4 years old, and I haven't had any contact with him for most of my life. The irony of my existence. Edit. Wow, people, I did not expect this. Thank you all for the nice words. Sorry if I don't get to reply to all. Happy thoughts all. Hug. My grandmother was the illegitimate daughter of a state assemblyman. I thought that was almost kind of cool until I found out that he marked her as dead on her birth certificate and likely never acknowledged her. Until her mother and sisters were killed, probably in a flu epidemic. Then, he took her into his home, where she worked as a maid for his cruel wife, and their children, until she met my grandfather at a barn dance, and could finally leave the house. She was the sweetest, most generous small town lady out there. I would never have known she had a difficult life in her youth. She never talked about it, and I don't think even her own children knew the whole story, until she was in her 90s and genealogy became a hobby for someone in the extended family. I sure do miss her. Apparently my great aunt, or something like that, ran away with an American soldier back in the days. She was engaged and on a pre-marriage trip with her fiancé, and while in Germany she met an American soldier and ran away with him. Left her fiancé in Germany to travel back home alone and tell her family that she had eloped. My family cut her off and never spoke to her again. Then, when she was older, she came back home, penniless with her children staying in the US, and wanted to live with her widowed mother who was living on a very small pension. Don't know what happened to her after her mother died. I found out about this last summer at a family gathering. Not sure why they decided to talk about it. Edit, Grandma. Got a birthday card on my 17th birthday from Christine. Ask my adoptive mum who Christine is. Oh, that's your sister. Only living biological relative. Didn't know she existed, lol.